Hello, everybody. My name is Noah, GamerTag's Favorite Reality. I am a writer here at King Gamer, and I'm here to interview Azeal, who is a VR content creator on the platform. Azeal, go ahead and say hi.
Hello, everybody. I am Azeal. I make videos where I interview people in virtual reality about their real life experiences, and I am happy to be here.
That's great. So, what's your history, and what made you want to pursue the type of content that you create?
So, the origin of the channel is actually really interesting because it's a lot less intentional than you might imagine. My channel started because I was running NVIDIA Shadowplay in a VR chat public lobby. For those of you who don't know, NVIDIA Shadowplay allows you to record the last 10 minutes of your game at all times. It's a replay buffer. And I started meeting these really interesting people. Some of them were part of, for instance, the National Park Service or ex military. A lot of them just went through really intense stuff in their personal lives. And what I would do is hear them talk about their experience and then ask them afterward, hey, can I save that as a recording and put it on the internet? Because I think people would really like it. I didn't really have much of an intention of it getting as big as it did. I mean, I had dreams of doing a YouTube channel, but they were dreams, right? And then I started posting this stuff on YouTube, and my first video had a couple of stories. It was about 15 minutes long. It was a compilation, and it didn't do very well, as you might expect from a YouTube video on a channel with 107 subscribers. It got about 73 views in 2 weeks. And then I met someone in a public lobby and I was talking about my YouTube channel with them, and they said, you should try posting on TikTok. And I decided to give it a shot. And I posted a clip of one of the stories on TikTok and went to bed. It was about 10 p.m. I woke up 9 hours later and it had 40,000 views and I had 1,000 followers. And that was where it all started.
Wow. Gotcha. That's interesting. I did not know that you posted on TikTok. I followed your channel for I'd say probably about a couple of years now. I remember one of the first videos I saw of yours was about where you interviewed that SWAT officer, and he was talking about his like day to day life on the job and such.
So I started back in May 2021. And I'd say since then, I not only have I met a lot of amazing people, but I feel like I've gotten better at doing it. I've given people a safe platform to talk about their experiences since day one. I've never really done anything that I would call discomforting or unsafe for someone, and I take pride in that. But I've gotten better at doing things like asking questions and helping people really get the words out that they want to say. Because, as I'm sure you know from your job, interviewing someone can be an art. It's really about making a person feel like what they want to say is being heard in the way they want it to be. There's a lot of guidance that's required to really make things flow perfectly. And that's before the editing process. Oh my gosh, not everyone is a public speaker, I'll say that. I have had to do a lot of editing magic in my time on YouTube.
I was curious what your inspiration was because I remember coming across your channel through another channel I was watching called Searmore,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember seeing a couple of his videos, and then I managed to stumble across some of yours as well as a result of that.
Yeah. So Searmore was actually the first time I was introduced to VRChat. It was probably mid 2019. I don't remember it very well because it didn't have much of an impact on me, but I did see his video, something something worst day as a soldier. It is to this day the most popular VR chat interview on YouTube, and it's a really good one. He did a good job with it. Searmore is someone I highly respect. He was doing this long before I was, and he was doing it really well. I'm actually friends with him, both on VR chat and on Discord, and we've talked about it occasionally. And I feel like I do kind of have his blessing to continue this because he doesn't do this much anymore. He has his own life. This isn't his dream. Um, he has bigger aspirations than just VR chat stuff, and I respect him for that. But the work that he did was still revolutionary. It brought, I mean, he got interviewed by like IGN. People realized that what he was doing in bringing real people into a virtual world and giving them this space of anonymity and security to talk about their life experiences, he recognized long before anyone else that that is powerful. So I would say Searmore was definitely my biggest inspiration. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, do you have any others, or was it mainly just Seymour that really got the ground running on that one end?
I would say Seymour, and then just like the amount of documentaries I watched as a kid, really, because whenever I would see an interview on live TV or like a Netflix documentary, when it was something that was powerful and the person in the interview was experiencing real emotions, it felt like something I've never experienced before. Like as a kid, I had a lot of social issues. I didn't feel like I got enough of the positive connection and interaction that I needed from my peers. And so seeing what the best humanity can do in an interpersonal interaction, one person comforting and caring for someone else, giving them the information that goes with the most powerful or painful or life-changing experiences they've ever had, like it stuck with me. Something that I think kind of is the flip side of that coin is I would, as a kid, watching movies, if there was like an awkward situation that was maybe played up for comedy, I would get anxiety from it. I would feel bad for the character. And that still happens to me today. I will feel weird if there's something uncomfortable happening on screen. So I think the reason that I was so inspired to do this once I realized I enjoyed it was because positive interpersonal connection is the most important thing to my happiness. And I know that's true for a lot of other people.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, as you said, like the end, and I always found Seymour in your interview so interesting because of that anonymity that people have in this environment, but yet they still have the ability to be social and interpersonal with each other and talking about really deep subjects and such.
Yeah. I would say that the best way to put it is that VR chat is a high speed interlink between two brains that tries as hard as it can, mostly successfully, to transmit social information that we usually only think of as being possible in a physical space.
So, do you have a favorite video that you have made thus far that you really particularly like or have a lot of pride in?
Yes. Uh, I've been asked this question by many a fan and friend, and the answer for the last year and a half has always been the same. I interviewed a girl with synesthesia, which, for those of you who don't know, is a unique genetic ability where your senses are mixed together. And for instance, you will get visual phenomena in your brain from hearing audio. Uh, it varies in the ways that it manifests in different brains, and there are theories that it is actually common in almost all babies and that it fades from most child brains because there, is an evolutionary reason for you to not have that happening. It helps with clarity. I interviewed a girl who has that, and about 2 months afterward, she became the love of my life, and we've been living together ever since. Um, her name online is Cleo, and after I did the interview with her in VR chat, I decided to pay for her to take a flight from her small town to the city of Los Angeles, where I was living at the time. And the reason for this is that I wanted to bring her to a rave, specifically a concert where Virtual Riot, one of my favorite artists, was playing his album Simulation, which, funnily enough, is virtual reality themed. And it was at the Hollywood Palladium, thousands of people there. And I wanted to see what she experienced in the synesthesia. In the 3 days that she was there, we fell in love. And I moved in a week and a half later back in her small town, and we've been together ever since.
All right. So, how do you go about choosing the stories you showcase in your videos?
It's definitely a difficult process, not because I have to, try to. It's definitely a difficult process because one, I have to understand what the audience wants to see, and two, I have to turn down about 95% of the people that come to me with very important stories to tell. Because the reality is that even though every story that has ever been submitted to my channel has been important, they're not all able to be made into a piece of content that will be viewed and that will be understood in the way they want to be understood. Um, the odds of me actually contacting someone after They have submitted their story to me through my Google form that I use for submissions, which is at azeal.me/submit if you're interested. There's about a 5% chance that I accept it. And then from there, it there's about a 7% chance that I accept it. And from there, about half of those stories end up as videos. So we're not talking about amazing odds if you submit something, but I just wish that there was a way for me to say in more powerful words that I don't care how monotonous or uninteresting you think your story is, it still matters to you, and therefore it should matter to the people around you, and it matters because you experienced it. So there really isn't such thing as a story I don't care about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. It's cool that you have this like review process, and then you allow so many members of your community and people outside of your community even to partake in the process of be telling their story and being in one of your videos and getting their story out there into the world for other people to hear and see. Did you ever have any times where making a video was difficult for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've uh, I've covered some pretty rough topics on my channel, things ranging from child sexual abuse to murder and loss in time of war, both on the civilian and military sides. I've met people that have been through any kind of trauma that can be listed. And although I'm usually pretty good at creating a boundary for myself to not get so involved that I feel that pain to an extent that I can't function, it has happened before. I have had interviews where the moment I took the headset off, I was crying. Um, and it has gotten to a point where I've sometimes had to cancel recordings because the one before it was just too much and I needed a break. Not to say that, my part of that story, me experiencing pain from it, is the most important part. Absolutely not. I would give up the the fact that I am able to listen to these things and I am given the opportunity to care for and listen to people that have never met me in some instances. That's like an honor. It's just that it does get to me sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely have moments in myself where I hear a story from somebody who has like a really emotional, traumatic experience, and then I get like secondhand emotional, like you just feel so sad for the person who went through that experience. You just want to kind of help them in some way or like make them feel better. But yeah, of course, it's always a difficult thing to deal with when you're wanting to listen to these kinds of stories and stuff. So I definitely get that perspective as well. Okay, can you give us any insight as to what type of like YouTube tools you use to cultivate your audience? Do you have any methods or anything where you utilize the platform to try to get your content out there for it to find an audience?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I stick by. They're more of like rules that I go by than tools themselves because the reality is that creating an optimized and well-performing YouTube channel is very, very finicky. That's the word I would use for it. There is so much randomness and so much inefficiency that you have to like get out of the workflow that you're doing to make sure that all of the content you post gets the best shot at going into the stratosphere. Because even though people talk about the algorithm like it's this amorphous being that chooses who is good and who isn't, the YouTube algorithm is, with exceptions, which I will talk about for sure because they are relevant to me personally, designed to efficiently and effectively emulate the way that human beings pick and choose content to take in as individuals on a massive level, but with granularity for each individual person. And it does like an okay job of it. Like, if you've ever been on YouTube on your main account where you have all your recommendations, and then you've gone to like a YouTube account that isn't logged in, let's say you're on like a public computer or something, or like you're in an incognito tab, you'll notice that you are way less interested in that second one. You will not see the kind of stuff you want to see nearly as much because that algorithm does such a good job of finding exactly what you want and giving it to you. Um, so I would say the main tools, or so I would say the mindset that I use for creating content is if you are not seeing the results that you want from a channel, there are things that you can do to change it. I would say the main thing that is part of my mindset for creating YouTube content is that the quality of your videos, although not perfectly aligned to the amount of views you will get, definitely does impact like the number of people that are going to see it and also what kind of people are going to see it. There is plenty of content on the internet that isn't well made, it's not good, but people will watch it. So what you kind of have to think about is if it's not the quality itself that is creating engaging content, what is, right? So for instance, what kind of stuff will bring people in and keep them watching? Uh, Introductions to videos, the first 30 seconds is more important than everything that comes after. That sounds, contrarian, but the reality is that the average YouTube video loses between 30 and 70% of its viewers in the first 30 seconds. Usually it's somewhere around 40. That's like ridiculous. The human attention span is awful. So for every viewer, you have to create an introduction that in aggregate will get every single person that you can possibly watching for as long as possible to stick through that first 30 seconds so that they get in their head what's going to happen for the rest of the video. So if you're creating a YouTube channel and you want to get the most views possible, you want to succeed massively, think about the first 30 seconds of your video. Look very carefully at the retention that you are getting on your video, meaning how long people watch, and find a way to grab people's attention in that first 30 seconds and hold on to it for your life. Because if you lose people in that first 30 seconds, you're losing them for the rest of the video. A couple of things that I've done to make YouTube intros more effective is try to make them mirror the rest of the video in a way that doesn't spoil the content, but effectively gets across the feelings that you will be experiencing from that content. So, for instance, if it's a very dark video, an interview with someone who went through something traumatic, I will make the introduction something that shocks you, makes you feel like, oh my God, this is how bad it gets. This is how intense this is going to be. And if they're ready for that, they're hooked. Or if it's a funny video, you try to get the most distilled, powerful, you try to get the most distilled humor you possibly can out of that first 30 seconds because people will leave if they don't think it's funny enough, and that's why they clicked. So I guess, in short, introductions are key. There's also, a lot of stuff to be said about thumbnails and titles, which are called metadata, kind of the stuff outside of the content that impacts the content. But I am no professional on that, and I would say look to those who are for that half of the information.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've definitely seen instances where, like, I've seen reviews of people like Mr. Beast, for example, really talk about and drive home that point of having your introduction, your first 30 seconds, be really key and really important in grabbing the audience's attention, and kind of, and then the thumbnail too also like helps set the expectations for what people are watching a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time. And if the videos, like first 30 or 40 seconds, do not meet and align with that expectation that the thumbnail is giving, then oftentimes that is also a reason why they will click off. From what I've
Absolutely.
heard from other content creators talking about
Yeah.
the subject.
Absolutely. I think, speaking about Mr. Beast, I believe he once said that he would spend $250,000 on a perfect thumbnail. And at his scale, that makes sense because the odds of that thumbnail making its money back are almost 100% if it's really as perfect as he wants it to be. But for even a small scale creator, think about that. Be like, the things that get people to click and stay are so important. You should be willing to spend half of the time you spend creating a piece of content on that title, thumbnail, and first 30 seconds. Absolutely. If it takes you 2, 3, 4, 10 hours, as long as you want, as long as you need to get that metadata and first 30 seconds to be perfect, do it. Because the YouTube because the YouTube algorithm will know if people are not interested. It gets access to every single piece of data about how they are moving between pieces of content. And it is very good at ruthlessly deciding who gets to stay on the platform and make a living off of it.
All right, so let's go to some more casual questions here. Do you have any places in VR chat that you like hanging out in? I remember we just met like each other through like or you were at the entrance of a rave. Is that right?
Yes, the rave scene in VR chat is definitely my number one hangout spot. For those of you who don't know, VR chat has a massive club scene where people play live music at with a DJ, uh, where people listen to live music being played by a DJ using usually actual DJ equipment in real life, and they just look up from their headset and are using that equipment to mix music. It can be anything from metal, dubstep, more chill stuff. It, overall, and in general, the community there is significantly better than the average VR chat public lobby. When people join VR chat for the first time, a lot of the time they will see something like the Black Cat, which, it's a well-made world, but the community is made up of people sometimes that feel like they're just shit talking in a CS:GO lobby. They don't realize that they're talking to real human beings, and they don't treat those people like human beings. So whether it's the rave scene or something like Trans Academy, which is a phenomenal community that is incredibly well moderated and cared for. It's a trans safe space that was created specifically to have an environment where trans people can feel welcomed and encouraged and educated online. And it all is centered around VR chat. Whatever kind of community you're in, if you find a group of people that you identify with and understand and connect with, that will give you a significantly better experience in virtual reality than the average public lobby. Not that public lobbies are bad. I mean, my channel started there. It's just you got to be a little bit more emotionally prepared for some bullshit if you're going to a public.
All right. Do you have any other VR games that you like to play?
Funnily enough, I don't think I've played another virtual reality game in the last 7, 8 months. I think the last time I played a VR game was like VR Minecraft in maybe August, September of 2022. And the reason for that is something I actually know quite a bit about because I talked to someone who is a professional game developer or was for a while, and he told me about one of the user experience parts of VR chat that makes it such a perfect tool for virtual reality experiences. Uh, if you've ever played Half-Life Alyx, I don't know if you have, but yeah. So Half-Life Alyx
Yes.
was a game where you had a set character with a body that you could look down at, and it was a game where you had a set character with a body that you would see in like different environments, and you know what that body looks like. And if you don't identify with that body, even if you are cis, but that body doesn't vibe with what you feel like, for a lot of players it caused dysphoria. Like cis men were experiencing dysphoria in a video game. And although that doesn't invalidate the game itself, the reason that I enjoy VR chat so much beyond any other experience for video games is because I decide what I am, and everything else is built on top of that. The experience starts with me and then builds to the things I'm experiencing. And I think that's like really understated for a lot of virtual reality experiences is like if you don't have a body in VR, that's one thing. But if you're given one that doesn't match you, there's always going to be that thought in the back of your mind of this isn't me. And that breaks your immersion without even having to take off the headset.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that kind of perspective before. Uh, Having like a set avatar affecting you in that way. That's interesting. All right. Last question. We'll go ahead and state this. Do you play any other games outside of VR by any chance?
I saw this question on the list and I was like, oh god, I'm gonna have to answer truthfully. There is literally one other video game that I use my PC for on a regular basis, and it is such a dumb choice. If you ever heard of the rhythm platformer Geometry Dash, it's a
Oh
little, yeah,
yeah, that one.
it's a little, it gets pretty hard. It's basically you click with a single button or tap if you're on mobile, and you jump or fly or wave up, whichever character mode you're in. It's all controlled with one button. And it tends to sync to music. It's not perfectly synced to the music because the player decides where stuff goes. Almost all the levels are player created. Um, I fell in love with Geometry Dash as a kid. Um, Pretty sure it was like an autistic special interest for a while. Might still be, who knows?
Mhm.
But it's had an impact on my life to the point where I still play it to this day, and I think it's kind of a release for me because without playing it, because it has a level of simplicity that allows me to understand what's happening and not get overwhelmed. Which, if you've ever seen Geometry Dash, that might be hard to believe, but trust me, if you really get into it, you start to understand what's happening. But it also has like a skill cap that is basically unmatched. Outside of speedrunning, I don't know of another video game that can be as difficult as Geometry Dash. And that's why I find it fun, because I can kind of find zen in trying the same thing over and over and over till it works.
Yeah, I kind of get that vibe when I play Bloons Tower Defense like
Mm-hmm.
6. I've been playing that a lot recently, and I remember back when I was a kid in elementary school, I remember playing tower defense games back then, and then I think in middle school, I remember I was in an economics class where we actually had a contest in the class where we would play with like a virtual stock market kinda,
Oh,
and then the
yeah.
teacher would give us advice on what stocks to invest. And I remember when we were done with the lesson for the day, I would oftentimes go ahead and play like Bloons Tower Defense on cool map games and stuff. So
So the memories are
it's really
there.
cool and interesting how, yeah, the memories are there. And then also, I'm still playing the same type of game 20 plus year or like 15 years later after the fact too.
Yeah.
How much it like sticks with you. It's cool. All right, Azeal, I think that's all the questions I had for you today. I'm very glad that you responded and we had this interview. It was really fun chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It feels very, I think the word is validating to have an actual journalist come to me and have some interest in what I do. So this has been really cool. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Azeal. I hope you have a good rest of your day and hope you, the audience, have a good rest of your day as well. Take care.
Thank you.